Hello, bookish friends. My name is Gail, and I am the fiction bookworm. So today, for my Vlogmas post, if you'll notice, you can see my Christmas cactus is really blooming. I've got some full-out flowers there as we progress towards Christmas. And so I wanted to talk today about reading as self-care. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because part of my Vlogmas posting has been in trying to make December a month of self-care for me, since it's the holiday season, and it can be a difficult month for people who are struggling with things. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about reading as self-care. Being a big reader and a librarian, I really like to think about ways in which we can read in order to help us deal with some of the hard things in life and get through the hard times. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this great cartoon website that I found that a friend of mine posted, and it is trying to bring some clarity to the idea of self-care. It's a term that's thrown around a lot, and there are a lot of things that are considered to be self-care that really are not self-care, like taking a bubble bath or something. That's not really a means of self-care. If you look at the literature about reading as self-care, it really is about reading things that will help you to grow in the process of whatever you're struggling with, to help you to be more stable, to help you think through whatever it is better. So it's really generally reading for improvement, not reading for fun or distraction. And not that that is bad at all. But anyway, so this website is by, so I'm going to link, so I'll link to this website down below, but it is a great description of self-care written by Deanna Zant, and it's called The Unspoken Complexity of Self-Care. And so she breaks it down into a division between self-soothing and self-care. And so a lot of the things that I think we would call self-care are really self-soothing, which that is, the bubble bath falls into that category. Reading things that are for fun or for enjoyment falls into that category. TV binging falls into that category. And so she says that self-soothing are activities that provide distraction and or comfort in difficult times. And so if you are someone who suffers from anxiety like I do, you'll know that self-soothing activities are very important. And I love the word self-soothing because we talk about that when we talk about babies. When babies cry, one important, I think, step in their development is to learn some self-soothing techniques, ways that they can comfort themselves and make themselves feel okay. And so I think as adults who might suffer from anxiety like I do, learning self-soothing techniques is really, really important. When you are dealing with a panic attack or an anxiety attack, you need to learn how to bring yourself out of that. And so one of the ways that really helps me if I'm dealing with especially bad anxiety is to read. And for me, it has to be a certain kind of fiction, and I think that's different for all different people. I can't read things that are going to make me more anxious. I can't read suspense or mystery or anything like that, because that's just going to make me more anxious. It has to be something that's just relaxing and something that I'm going to be drawn into a world and enjoy the world that I'm in. Historical fiction is really helpful for me, or any other kind of contemporary story that is just on the lighter end and more enjoyable. So a great example of that for me is a book like this one. This is called The Lost Vintage by Anne Ma. It's hard to get a good picture on this on the camera because it's a little shimmery. But this is a great example, I would say, of the kind of self-soothing book for me. It's set in France, which I love the location. It feels like I'm on a vacation in France when I'm reading it. So any book that has the ability to transform me out of my current stressful situation and into a new location is a really good self-soothing book for me. And that's what this book does. It makes me feel like I'm on a vacation in France while I'm reading it. But those books are really only just self-soothing. They're just giving you sort of a temporary reprieve. When we get to the self-care, the definition that Deanna Zant gives of self-care is activities that help you find meaning and support your growth and groundedness. And so, these are things like going to therapy, taking ownership of your finances, meditating, exercise, napping, massage, setting and keeping boundaries. So really important things that help you to both ground yourself, but also to help you grow. And this is where reading as self-care comes out of probably what we would consider to be more of the sort of inspirational or self-help kind of books. So I love that one of the things that she has on here is about setting boundaries. One of the best books I think I've ever read was by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's called the Boundaries book. And so that is really about forming and setting boundaries and teaching you how to do that. So that would be a great book. If boundaries are an issue for you in your life, this is a book that can help you to be, take part in those skills that you need to set boundaries. I think for anyone who is dealing with stress at work, low morale at work, the Boundaries book would be a really good book to read, because sometimes when you're in those stressful situations, you don't have good boundaries. You don't have work-life balance, but you don't have good boundaries with work. And so that would be a helpful book for you to read. One that I'm hoping to start very soon is also by Dr. Cloud, called Necessary Endings. And that's about dealing with change in relationships or in the workplace. Another good category, I think, of these kinds of books that help you to grow and to be grounded might be authors like Brené Brown. I've just started reading her book on leadership. And another author that I think for me is really good in this area, because I'm interested in reading about Christianity and Christian faith, is Rachel Held Evans. She passed away this past year, but she wrote a number of really good books about the Christian faith, and one of her books, called Searching for Sunday, I have already found to be really helpful and really healing for me. So anyway, those are some of the types of things I think that can help you. You do have to be very careful, though, that you're picking things that are really going to be helpful for your growth, and not harmful, though. I know, especially when it comes to spiritual things, there are a lot of people who sometimes deal with trauma related to spiritual things, and so be very careful when you're picking your books that they won't further your trauma in any way. And that's really true for any kind of self-care book. You have to be very careful what you're going to pick and make sure that it's going to help with growth. And there's probably people in your life who can help advise you as to what would be a good book and what wouldn't be a good book. So these are some of my thoughts on self-soothing books and self-care books. And I don't want to make it sound like the self-soothing are less important than the self-care, because they are absolutely just as important, if not more important. You know, the self-care is really about helping you to grow and to move past some of the hardship. You know, if you're dealing with grief, you might read books about grief. And so that helps you kind of move through the process. And so those are very, very important. But when you're in a day or a moment of crisis, you know, when you're having a day with really bad anxiety and it just seems like medication is either not an option for you or is not helping you that particular day. You know, for me, on days when I feel like, you know, it's just a little bit more than I can handle, having some time just to settle down into a book, into another world that can take me out of my spinning thoughts, is really, really important. You know, in many ways, even more important than reading a book that over the long term is going to help me grow. You know, sometimes you just need to get through those days when your thoughts are spinning. You know, you do have to be careful that you don't want to spend too much time in that other world, so much so that you don't want to be in this world. I occasionally have those days too. I had one just last week where I was reading a book and I was very caught up in the world of the book. And I wasn't sleeping well that night, and I read for about 3 hours during the night. And when I got up for work in the morning, I thought, oh, I don't want to go to work. I just want to go back into my book. And so those are kind of a little danger sign where the self-soothing is becoming a little too much. And I'd rather live in the book world than the real world. But, you know, I think if you can help monitor yourself and recognize, okay, you know, I feel okay right now, I can step out into the real world and deal with the real world instead of living inside my book world. So these are some of my thoughts on self-care and reading. I love reading. I think I have used reading as a self-soothing mechanism for probably most of my life. I don't think that will ever change. And I'm guessing if you're watching this, you probably do too. And so I hope that you enjoy reading. I hope that you find reading at times, especially in this season, to be a good self-soothing mechanism for you. And I will talk to you again very soon. Happy reading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and be sure to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.